Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining the CEA 101, a Study Abroad Overview webinar. We're so excited to have you here today to learn about your students' upcoming Study Abroad program. My name is Kelly Farber, and I am helping to facilitate today's meeting as our Student Marketing Manager. Just a few housekeeping items. We did record the session earlier today, however, there were some audio and technical issues, and we wanted to re-record the session for a better experience for those that needed to keep the recording link as a reference, or for those of you who were not able to attend the session today. This is a fresh recording. We will not spend time at the end answering questions, as those will be answered and sent out via email, posted to the Facebook chat, and addressed again in our future Facebook chats we'll be having later on in the season. So with that being said, we will get started with our presentation. Today we have a lot of topics to cover. We'll be reviewing an introduction to CEA resources, so who CEA is, and then planning for departure, covering the country entry requirements, student health and safety, emergency protocols, cell phone and communication logistics, packing tips, and life on location. For those of you who are new to CEA, CEA stands for Cultural Experiences Abroad, and we are a study abroad provider. We do go by CEA Study Abroad now, and we've been offering study abroad programs to college students since 1997. CEA does work with U.S. and international universities to develop our study abroad programs and our academics, with the goal of helping as many students study abroad as we can. Many of us here at CEA have also studied abroad or had international experiences and are very passionate about what we do and making sure that experience for both our students and their families supporting them is the best that it can be. Recent studies have proven that study abroad programs offer benefits that go beyond the college years, which include career benefits like higher starting salaries and students becoming more valuable to those prospective employers because they've already had that experience. In terms of contacts here at CEA, from now until departure, you do have the family Facebook support communities. We also have our family blog. You will always be able to access this webinar as a reference in case you need to refer back to it. And of course, you do have your student site specialists. They're going to be your best points of contact until your student leaves for their program abroad. We also have our Director of Student Affairs, Liz Cather, if you do have additional concerns or questions about health and safety. With that, I will pass the presentation off to Emily Sally. She is our Student Advising Supervisor.
Thank you so much, Kelly. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you today. My name is Emily, and as Kelly mentioned, I am the Student Advising Supervisor. Just a little bit about myself. I studied abroad in Grenoble, France, and attended James Madison University. I've been working with CEA for about 2 years, and I have the pleasure of working with the enrollment team, which is the wonderful group that you see on the screen in front of you. These team members are your students' main points of contact during this time and just love the study abroad experience and want to help your students succeed. So now I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the experience that they're having during the pre-departure time and the resources that are available to both you and your students. So your student started this experience by working with a CEA admissions counselor to determine the program that would be best fit for their academic and personal goals and needs. They were directed to speak with their university's academic advisors, with their university's study abroad advisors, and you to fully prepare to apply to the correct program. Once they were accepted into that program, your students started working with their site specialists. Site specialists are your students' main point of contact from the time they are accepted into the program until they get on the plane to leave for their study abroad experience. Your student site specialist reaches out to your student through several different mediums, including text messaging, which is always the most popular, phone calls, emails, and Facebook. They reach out to your students regularly to ensure they are receiving both logistical and cultural preparation for their program abroad. Each site specialist is an expert in the programs they advise, and in most cases have been to those locations that they advise about. Your student also has a personal student account advisor who is a great resource for tuition payment. From a customized payment plan to working with their school's financial aid office, this team is available to help support you and your student in creating the best financial strategy for your family. I would like to highlight another amazing resource other than the enrollment team, This is their student's My CEA account, which you can see on the screen. This student portal is an overview of all preparation your student needs to complete before they leave for their program. It has a lot of information to help them prepare culturally for their program, which they can find in the Resources tab. It has all logistical preparation, which you can see on the screen in their to-do list. You can even see their payment and invoices in the Payment Info tab and make payments there as well. If you would like to see your student's My CEA account, please ask them for their login information. As I mentioned, our goal is to help prepare you and your student for an excellent study abroad experience. If you have any questions about your student's program, please don't hesitate to reach out to anyone on our team. Now, Elizabeth Cather, the Director of Student Affairs, is going to talk to you about some pre-departure conversations.
Thanks so much, Emily. This is Elizabeth Cather. I go by Liz, and I am CEA's Director of Student Affairs. I came to CEA after working in university environments, college student development for many years, and I did my exchange as a study abroad student in high school, and I spent a year in Australia. I'm your resource for questions about your student's holistic experience outside of the classroom. Students choose their study abroad locations for many reasons. Maybe a sibling or a parent studied there, they visited once on a family vacation or a school trip and wanted to go back. Maybe no one in their family has traveled abroad and they are the trailblazer. Or it's likely their friends have highly recommended this particular city and now they also have friends going abroad at the same time on their CEA program or on another program. As you and your student are reflecting about this study abroad opportunity, it's valuable to have conversations with them about what they expect from the experience and what you might expect of them. What are their goals for studying abroad? Is it to perfect an existing language skill that they've been working on since college, or maybe acquire conversational skills in another language? Is it to earn credits for their degree? Is it to focus on absorbing the local culture? Maybe learning about where family members may have came from and their heritage? Or is the goal to travel as much as possible and experience multiple cultures abroad? What are your expectations for them? Do you hope they gain independence and become a more resilient young adult? Are you looking for them to develop a more global perspective, experience a new culture, seek out new career skills, or maybe gain international work experience? This kind of discussion, whether it happens in little pieces or a big sit-down, will help you understand your students' priorities and help you share your hopes for them. Preparing a budget is also an important conversation to have, and it will be more involved than the typical college budget of books and organization dues and maybe pizza. It's important to understand how much independent travel your student hopes to do and what will happen to their budget with that once-in-a-lifetime trip that they can't afford to miss. Thinking about the cost of regular transportation, incidental expenses like that daily coffee. Your student is going to have a lot of new eating and drinking experiences in their host city and the other places they visit, and chances are it will be more costly than their typical U.S. college budget. You may anticipate a higher cost of living in most locations.
Thank you so much for mentioning that, Liz. A really great resource that I want to point out to you about budgeting is there are sample budgets for each program that we offer on our website. So this budget reviews a low-end and a high-end spending options for students who have previously studied abroad in these locations. So it's a great place to start to begin that conversation about how much they'll spend and budget setting moving forward. So continuing with some more pre-departure preparations, let's review some additional suggestions and resources available to you. I would like to remind all of you of the CEA information sharing communities that have been created just for you. We have country-specific Facebook pages that serve as wonderful forums for information sharing, questions, and supports with individuals whose students are studying abroad in the fall semester with CEA and are going through a very similar experience. Also, we will be sending bi-weekly emails with updates to everyone, and we have a CEA blog for those of you who are not on Facebook. Individuals listed as their student's emergency contact will be receiving all of this communication. I also want to highlight the family guide that you can see on the screen. This can be found electronically on the family blog, on the CEA website, and we will also post it in the Facebook groups. This is a really excellent overview for any family member of a CEA study abroad student. Also, as a reminder, your CEA Phoenix staff members are here to help and support you and your student with anything that you need during the pre-departure process.
Thanks, Emily. I really appreciate that information and highly recommend that family guide. I want to talk a little bit about some of the feelings that you may be having as this study abroad experience becomes a reality for your students. New experiences can be stressful, and as you work through your students' preparations, there are going to be some challenges and frustrations. Possibly that My CEA to-do list, the class offerings that might change, ticket prices that might change as you're looking for the best airline deal. And you and they are both going to worry about whether they meet new people, the friends they'll make. As parents, we want our children to be happy with their choices, and in some cases not have to struggle too much to find that happiness. We know, however, from working with students that these challenges and working through these difficulties will help your student become stronger and more resilient and prepare them for any minor setback they might have in life, maybe even in a little bit of study abroad. While your feelings of concern are going to be magnified by the distance and the anticipation of all these new unknowns with your student going abroad, these same things are very exciting for your student. So you may not be on the same page emotionally. But just remember, from the day they first started school, you have helped prepare them, and they have learned things from you and to succeed in new environments. And they have succeeded in college so far. They are going to succeed studying abroad. One thing you should discuss with them, if you're used to speaking regularly every day, be prepared for some gaps in communication. That is just a part of international travel and communication, and communication with your student will be less regular in the beginning. You set up a regular call time so that you can work around time differences and anticipate the busy schedules that you both will have in the fall term. Let your student know that you are going to worry less about them when you can have those regular touch points, rather than they're only calling you on the spur of the moment or when they're feeling emotional or frustrated. I encourage you to join our family groups to help you balance those feelings that you'll experience with the support of other parents and other family members who are going through the very same experiences.
Thanks, Liz. Now we're going to talk about country entry requirements. This is a topic that we are working on with your students right now. It's very, very important, so I'm just going to review a general overview of what country entry requirements are. So to study abroad in a foreign country, each student must abide by the entry requirements dictated by that country. But to start with, every student must have a valid passport, which you can see on the screen in front of you. That's an example of a valid passport. Please work with your student to ensure that their passport is valid for at least 90 days after their program ends. Also, their passport needs to be in good condition and be signed on the data page, as you can see in the example on the screen. So the signature is in the larger red circle. The expiration date is in the smaller red circle below. For the majority of our fall programs, local authorities require a student to obtain a visa for their study abroad program. A student visa is basically a contract between the student and the country in question that allows the student to stay in the country for a certain amount of time to complete their studies. To confirm any entry requirements for your student's program, please reach out to your student site specialist, or you can review the visa guide that has been posted in the Facebook group and in your My CEA account, your student's My CEA account.
And one thing, Emily, I'd like to mention, if your student does plan to travel, I would encourage you to look at the entry requirements for those other countries they may visit. Even in our own time, we've seen the entry requirements change for going to Canada and going to Mexico. And so it's very important that they be prepared if they're going to travel frequently, independently, and to always have their passport with them when they travel. As your son or daughter prepares to go abroad, it's a good time to reflect on their overall health. If they are coming off a stressful or very hectic summer where they're working a job, maybe 2 jobs and an internship, if they've been fighting allergies before they depart, it's really critical that they take some time to eat well catch up on their sleep, watch their caffeine intake before undertaking this international journey. If your student is starting this experience very stressed or feeling unwell, it's going to be difficult for them to get up to speed after arrival. Please do check out the CDC website for any immunizations that are recommended for your student's host country or the countries they hope to visit. Specifically in mosquito-prone climates, we highly recommend taking an insect repellent with DEET as an active ingredient. These are the only repellents that are being shown to be effective against mosquito-borne illnesses such as Zika or dengue, and these repellents tend to be very expensive on site. So please purchase this insect repellent if your student is going to be traveling to any mosquito-prone areas and pack it in their checked luggage. Typically, the college-age boosters for meningitis and tetanus are also a good idea. Talking a little bit about jet lag, it is real. Everyone in our office here who has traveled internationally can attest to that. It can take about a week for a person to adjust once they arrive on site. So settling into a routine, eating, and staying hydrated is very important for your students and will help them transition into the life at their new location. Remind them about this. They're going to want to go out and hit the town as soon as they arrive. They're going to want to see everything in the first week. And they need to take some time to adjust and pace themselves so that they can be healthy for their whole term. Students do adapt at their own speed, and you're likely going to hear and see that progress as they go through the various stages of cultural adaptation. We have a great resource about cultural adaptation on the MyCEA account. You can ask your student if they looked at it and maybe have them share it with you. We can also post that in our family blog and in our Facebook group so that you can review it for yourself. The things that they share online or in your phone calls that are new and exciting, frustrating, or different are all part of that adaptation process. Your positive reinforcement of all aspects of their experience, helping them know that these are things that they will go through that help them make memories that are going to be valuable for a lifetime, is really important. All students studying with CEA have health insurance through Consolidated Health Plans, we call it CHP, during their program dates. Students are not covered outside their program date. So if they arrive a few days before their program starts or stay after their program ends to travel independently, they will not have health coverage during those times. I strongly advise finding a short-term travel health plan, very easy to find online, to cover those times. So if your student would have an injury or need to see a doctor, they can do that. Again, your student is only covered by CEA's health insurance during the dates of their CEA study program. The CHP plan is a reimbursement style plan where students pay upfront for their visit to a doctor or clinic and then file a claim to get that money back. Upfront costs are fairly reasonable abroad due to socialized medicine. Usually a visit 60 to 80 euros, excuse me. It will be less to see a nurse practitioner and more to see a specialist if they needed allergy shots, for example. CEA staff will help students make those appointments on site and help them complete the claims forms. The reimbursements can take up to about 6 weeks, and those are sent to their home address. So make sure that your student has funds for seeing the doctor. I strongly encourage a special account or a credit card dedicated for healthcare concerns. Students often put off going to the doctor if they think the out-of-pocket expense is going to hinder their other activities. They will need to have their CHP card with them to file claims, but they do not need to show it when they are on site in the doctor's office. That's different than our experience here in the United States. You do not have to show your insurance card for service because everyone receives service as part of socialized medicine plans. This is a great slide, really important that we talk a little bit about student safety. No matter the information you or your student may have about their study location already, maybe don't miss photo opportunities and restaurant recommendations from friends or family online. Doing the additional research for you and your student is a good idea so that you can look up the university where their classes are held. You can read the bios of the faculty at the CEA Center, which are posted online. checking out the blogs of other CEA students studying at that location. I especially recommend looking up the expat newspapers of many of the international cities where your students may travel. They're available in English, and they talk about the current issues and life for Americans abroad at that location. Do please sign yourself and your student up for the U.S. State Department's Smart Traveler Enrollment Program. That is an item on your student's MyCEA checklist. This program provides you updates sent to your email about location situations, current travel advisories, and is a great way to stay connected with your students as they also are enrolled and post the countries where they will be traveling. We understand that alcohol is part of the U.S. college experience, and for students studying abroad, especially interested in going out, and even if your student hasn't used alcohol before, the attraction of going out in a new place is going to be even more exciting. However, alcohol misuse or abuse can set a student up to be a victim of petty crime or more serious crimes. Beyond having their phone or wallet stolen, they may be involved in an assault. Students are not aware of the easy target that they present when they are going out to clubs that cater to students and tourists. Doing that the smart way, staying in groups, never going out alone, always knowing where their friends are and having a plan on when they will leave helps, because criminals do know these areas and look for students who are alone or are under the influence in the clubs and follow them when they leave. If your student ever shares that they've been a victim of any crime, please direct them to the CEA staff so that they can not only receive support and assistance to file a police report, but most critical, this reporting can be time-consuming and the staff can help them through it. It's not what the students want to do, but with your encouragement also, they'll see the value in standing up for themselves and alerting authorities to the crimes that are taking place in these specific areas against students. I'll talk a little more later about our CEA mandatory orientation, but they do give students important information about safety on site, so please talk to your student about attending. Students also need to be aware of our emergency protocols. At CEA, we're very aware of the challenges of the times and the risks that we all experience here in the U.S. and abroad. Our student emergency protocol, which you can see on the slide, was developed specifically for students. 4 easy steps if they should ever encounter an emergency: to stay in a safe place or go to a safe location, connect with their emergency contact, that being their family member at home, to let them know that they are safe, and they should respond to any messages from CEA and confirm their safety also with us. Lastly, they're going to follow the directions of any local authorities who are on scene. These are very, very important steps, and they are repeated to students on site in that orientation, when they choose to travel independently, and also before any of our planned excursions. It's very important that CEA knows when your students are traveling independently. We have processes for them to report that independent travel, and that we can be in touch with them then according to any emergencies that may be experienced. We've implemented these emergency protocols to ensure the safety and location of all students. CEA may outreach to you as a student's emergency contact to help us determine where they are. Your help in providing that information about your student's location and safety is a valuable part of our partnership with you. And you should be the first person they contact, and that provides a fallback for CEA in case we are not able to contact the student because of cell service or other issues. It's critical that students have a working cell phone. It cannot be Wi-Fi dependent. It needs to be working at all times should we need to contact them in the event of an emergency. We do have a CEA emergency phone here, a toll-free 1-800 number should you ever become aware of a situation with your students, and you can alert us to that. That number will be shared with you through our blog and our Facebook pages. Emily is now going to talk a little bit more about cell phone options.
Thank you so much, Liz. Cell phones, this is a big topic. We always get a lot of really good questions about this. It's a very important topic. So now I'm going to do an overview of several options for cell phones and why we require students to obtain a cell phone while they are abroad. CEA requires that all students have a working phone with either international or local service. We also require that the students provide this phone number to our on-site staff within 5 days of the program starting. As Liz was mentioning, this is to ensure that our staff can reach your student in the event of an emergency. Now I'm going to review your options for obtaining a cell phone. Number one, your student can use their current cell phone with an international SIM card. Now some phone models, mostly newer ones, can accept international and foreign SIM cards. Ask your service provider if your student's phone is capable of being used internationally. If it is, request that they unlock your phone for you. Unlocking is just them entering a code in the phone to make it compatible with international SIM cards. This step must be completed before your students travel. With a foreign SIM card, your student will purchase credit for use, and they will continually purchase credit as they use the phone. This is a great way to keep track of budget and is usually a less expensive way to communicate. One thing to note, many foreign SIM cards cannot support internet apps or etc. like US smartphones. These are primarily for local calls and text messages. So again, option one is using your current cell phone with an international SIM card. Option two is to purchase a pay-as-you-go phone when your student arrives in their study abroad location. Pay-as-you-go phones are widely used internationally and can be purchased very inexpensively. Similar to option one, your student will purchase credit and continue to purchase additional credit as needed throughout the semester. Many students choose this option and then bring their US phone with them, keep it in airplane mode, and use it for Wi-Fi in Wi-Fi areas. So again, option two is to obtain a pay-as-you-go phone upon arriving at the study abroad location. Option three is for them to use their regular phone with an international plan. This is a very convenient option, however, sometimes it can be very expensive. Therefore, we encourage you to research different options with either your provider or other US providers for competitive plans. So option three is to use a regular phone, a regular US phone with an international plan. Our on-site staff can help your students answer any questions once they are on site if they need assistance. Again, we ask please ensure that your student provides their cell phone number to the on-site staff. And please remind them that this needs to be done within the first 5 days of the program. A great place to do this is during orientation, which takes place during the first few days of their program. Now we'll talk a little bit more about international communication. If your student is going to take a smartphone or tablet abroad, there are some great apps that are free, that are very secure, and work really well for international communication. They are Viber, WhatsApp, Skype, or FaceTime. Again, those are Viber, WhatsApp, Skype, or FaceTime. These can all be downloaded and are very, very effective means of communication internationally. The last thing that I'll say about this is while it's important for students to know that Wi-Fi will be available, it is crucial that they not rely on Wi-Fi alone to communicate with our on-site staff.
I thank you for stressing that, Emily. It is really important for student safety and for our emergency protocols to work. And if your student should ever lose their phone or have their phone stolen, please, they need to connect with the on-site staff as soon as they replace that phone and report that new phone number. That's also important so that our emergency protocols and contacts can work. We're going to talk now about some packing tips. It's often the fun part of studying abroad, preparing, and can also be very stressful. CEA suggests 3 bags in a combination of a backpack, a carry-on bag, and then also a larger suitcase, which will be the student's checked bag. This allows for some versatility later when the student may travel independently, and is also more manageable when the student encounters flights of stairs in their housing assignment, and no help to manage 2 or 3 large bags. That can be quite a burden. Check with your airlines, of course, for any restrictions. There are international weight limits that can be very expensive if you don't follow them. When they are preparing to leave, they should also bring the following documents with them on the plane in a place that they can easily access them. It would be their arrival card, which they will print out and has all the contact information for their on-site staff. They should also have their passport and a copy of their passport. They should have their own identification and then their airline ticket, easily accessible so they're not rummaging through a lot of other luggage to get to those items. They should expect to have their electronics screened and to pack those so that they're also easily accessible in their carry-on bags. And while it may seem unnecessary in this day and age, especially for college students, having a change of clothes and some toiletries with them in their carry-on bag can be a huge help if their bag is delayed or misrouted. That does happen occasionally, and for young women to know that they have all of their makeup with them, for guys to be having an extra t-shirt, for all of our students to be able to change of underclothes, just really, really important and can relieve a stressful situation. Do not pack any medication in your checked baggage. Just in case that bag is misrouted and they do open those bags and check, that medication will be confiscated. Medication should be packed in their carry-on bag. It should be clearly identified with the student's name if it is a prescription. It should also include a note as to why it is prescribed and the doctor prescribing it, using the formulation, not the brand name. We want to say ibuprofen rather than Advil.
Great points, Liz. One thing that I would like to mention about medication is that the student needs to obtain the entire amount of medication that they need for their entire program before leaving. Shipping medicine internationally is very, very, very difficult. We do not recommend shipping medication at all. If you need assistance with your insurance company and a letter proving that they are going to be abroad for a certain amount of time, please let us know. We are happy to provide that to you. Now I'm going to talk about what to pack. When deciding what to pack, we encourage you and your student to research the climate and the weather patterns of the location. Is it going to be very rainy? Is it very humid there? What's the average temperature? But with that being said, the best advice we have for packing is pack layers. Your student should be able to pack several outfits with the same clothes, just mixed up. Keep in mind also if they will be visiting any religious institutions that have a dress code. No bare shoulders, for example, or no clothes above the knees. Also, while tennis shoes and flip-flops are not very common in other countries, we encourage your students to bring comfortable walking shoes. They will likely have a walking distance and commute from their schools to their housing, and they'll be exploring new cities, new places, as well as their host city. So these will be very, very important. Lastly, we encourage your students to leave home anything that is not replaceable. CEA does not provide personal property insurance, so you're encouraged to look into a personal insurance plan to cover these items that your students will bring. For example, computers, or a phone, or a camera, for example. However, we would hate for an heirloom or something that is just irreplaceable to be lost, so we encourage all of that to be left at home. All right, so moving on to life on location, we're going to be talking about arrivals. Have you thought about what your students' first few days of the program will be? How will they adjust to their new life abroad? What will their first few days look like? Let's talk about what arrival will be like and how to help your student prepare for it. First things first, your student needs to arrive on the program start date, which can be found on the My CEA account, which can be found on their website. They've also received that date in several emails from their site specialist. Please note this is not the day they will start classes. This is just the day that the program starts and they need to arrive on this date. One of my favorite resources that our on-site staff provides for your students is airport pickup. It's so wonderful to see a friendly face in the airport through the haze of jet lag, just like you see in the picture on the screen. To qualify for airport pickup, your student needs to arrive at the airport before the cutoff time, which you can also see on the screen in front of you. They need to enter their flight information on their CEA account, which is a task on their to-do list, and they need to live in CEA housing. If they meet these requirements, a CEA representative will be at the airport to greet them. Our staff will be waiting for them in a very bright orange shirt. They're nearly impossible to miss. If your student's baggage has been misplaced by the airline, our staff will help them fill out a lost luggage claim before they even leave the airport. Please remember that while we cannot control how quickly the luggage is delivered, our staff will facilitate the timely delivery for your student. Now, if your student's flight is delayed, all they need to do is look at the arrival card that Liz was mentioning. This can be printed on from their CEA account. Contact information for the on-site staff is on this card. So all your student needs to do is reach out to them and keep them updated on their delays. Our staff will then work with them to determine their next steps. After they're picked up at the airport, your student will be taken to their living arrangements and ensured that they are settled in. They will be shown around their new home, shown how to lock the door, and shown how to use the Wi-Fi. They'll be given a calendar for the next few days and made sure that all questions are answered. At this time, until the end of the program, your student's on-site staff is now their best resource and main point of contact. It will be their first instinct to reach out to their site specialist or to you if something goes wrong or if they have a question, but please encourage them to reach out to their on-site staff as they are the best equipped to deal with any situation your student may face. They're in the same city, they're in the same time zone, and they are very, very experienced professionals. Now Liz is going to talk about orientation and the first few days of the program.
As I mentioned, discussing student safety. Attending the arrival and orientation and all of the activities that are scheduled for students during those first few days of transition are really, really very important. Not only are they going to meet their CEA on-site staff, who are their main resource now, but they're also going to meet other students on their programs. They're going to have an opportunity to meet faculty. They're going to have tours of the city, great activities to feel more adjusted and more welcomed. And we wouldn't want any of our students to miss that opportunity to explore on their own or to try and see the site. They have a long term ahead of them, and they'll have opportunities to be independent. Right now, the focus needs to be on settling into their program and understanding the expectations that we have of them. Important information during the orientation includes student activities and the excursions that they've paid for, their classes and what to expect, settling into their housing and specific housing policies. Students are also advised on the clubs to avoid, ways to stay safe and not get pickpocketed, recommended taxi services that do not overcharge or take students on the long way around. Understanding the local culture is also presented and what to expect in social situations, how not to stand out, how to blend in. Have a plan with your students so they will contact you when they've arrived and then set up that regular call schedule. It may be due to jet lag or the busy orientation schedule, but you may not get regular calls during that first few days. You may even get a few calls at night as they settle into their regular schedule. When they do call, as they are adapting, be that sounding board for their feelings of frustration, when their apartment or their neighborhood doesn't match that ideal picture they had of their location, or help them connect to the on-site staff that can help them in real time and explain the advantages of their housing and maybe show them some great shops nearby or things they haven't had time to discover.
Now we're going to talk about academics. CEA Study Abroad has high academic standards, and they are enforced throughout your student's program. Regardless of whether your student is attending a CEA study center or a partner institution, there will be academic standards and policies that your student will be held accountable for. For example, there will be an absence and attendance policy. Excessive absences can affect your student's grades. Please note that these academic and attendance policies may differ from your student's home institution. However, rest assured, it is reviewed at length during your student's orientation. There's also academic staff available for support during your student semester. One thing that I would like to mention is that traveling independently will count as an absence for your student. So if you are planning on visiting your student during their program, please review their calendar to make sure that your plans coincide with your students' breaks and they don't interfere with any excursions or any other CEA activities. CEA also prides itself on our dedication to take academics outside the classroom. We have several classes that are actually conducted in museums or local attractions. The picture on this slide, for example, was taken at our Great Masters class in Florence, where the students had classes in places like the Duomo Museum, the Uffizi, or the Accademia. We also have opportunities for students to volunteer with local organizations. We also have organized meetings for local students for them to meet and work on their language. Several partner institutions also offer resources, maybe intramural sports or organized activities or trips. If your student is currently receiving accommodations from their local home institution, please have them reach out to their site specialist to start that conversation. One interesting challenge that our students sometimes face is adapting to a new university environment. Many of our partner institutions and CEA centers are located right in the middle of a big city, maybe in one building. This can be a very different experience for your student who's used to the traditional U.S. campus. We encourage you to discuss this new environment with them and continue to remind them that while they are in a new learning environment and an exciting new city, they are still attending an academic program. This new style of academics will also be noticeable inside the classroom. The pace, the style, the rules, the expectations within the classroom may be much more strict or formal than your student is used to. Our CEA staff will be there to support your students, but it is important for them to learn and to adapt to these new rules put forward by their new academic staff.
I'm glad you mentioned the differences in the learning environments, Emily, because it is always a shock to our students, especially upperclassmen who have had several classes and are well along in their college career, when they are now faced with a strictly lecture-style environment. Traditional European education does not facilitate a lot of question and answer during the lecture. Also, for students who have a more laid-back approach to college and have known their professors on their U.S. campus for a while, they will not be admitted late to a classroom, and we usually have a student or two who has that experience where the professor refuses them admittance to the class when they come in late. So those are a couple of experiences that we can reference and that you might hear about from your students. We're going to talk about life on location and general expectations now outside of the classroom. Whether your student is in an apartment, whether they're in a residencia, which is the equivalent of a European dormitory, or even a homestay. The architecture of the housing and the amenities will be different. The ceilings may be much taller, the windows may be much larger, there may not be screens on those windows. Housing features might have freestanding closets that are smaller as opposed to the large walk-in closets that we're used to here. They can also expect smaller storage spaces in general, smaller dressers, smaller vanity tables. The internet may not be as fast or consistent, especially if you have 4 to 6 students in an apartment all downloading content or streaming at the same time. Laundry facilities may be in a different location. Maybe the washer is outside on a patio or a balcony. Generally, they will not find clothes dryers as part of the appliance package. Laundromats and laundry services are available, and you can find clothes dryers, but they do tend to be very expensive. Families abroad, our students abroad will be hanging their clothes to dry, and it'll be interesting as they work their wardrobe choices around what's clean and what's dry. And it requires a little more planning than maybe they've had to do in the past with having access to a clothes dryer.
Another difference that your students may experience is the commuting time. Commuting is very, very common in all of our locations and in big cities in general. Depending on the location, students can travel between 10 and 40 minutes to and from their housing and their academic institution. This is all part of the experience of living in a new country. Your students will adjust to it, but it may be surprising to them at the beginning. Public transportation is very, very manageable in our locations, and our staff ensures that students are confident using whatever means of transportation is available.
Transportation is very closely located to their housing in their neighborhood. And what's nice about the neighborhoods is they are immersed with other locals, whether they're young families, other professionals, seniors, other international students in some cases. But what is good to know is that except for the residencia style housing, this is not student housing. And these apartments are part of a larger communities where there are applicable local laws. For example, the 10 p.m. quiet law is common in Spain, in the Czech Republic, in Italy, and students who are used to living in student housing with other students will need to adjust their lifestyles a little bit. Most students I know don't come alive until after 10 p.m. They'll also notice that families go out of their apartments to entertain. They spend time in cafes. They spend time in parks. So they will need to host any gatherings they want outside of their apartments where they wouldn't disturb their neighbors after hours. Another point, just graffiti is very common and can often be seen as an art form or freedom of expression. If you notice graffiti and pictures your students send, or students are commenting on the graffiti on public buildings, even sometimes historic monuments, that is not indicative of crime or gang behavior as we often see it in the United States.
Very good points, Liz. As I talked about earlier, living in a city may be a very different experience for your student than what they are currently living in on a U.S. college campus. While the initial crowds, public transportation, traffic, and noise may be intimidating and very new to your students, we encourage them to use their on-site staff as a resource. Many of them are either native to that city and country or have lived there for many, many years. They will have techniques, tips, and suggestions on how to adapt to this new environment, how to adapt to the new language, as well as stay safe and healthy. Okay, now to the good stuff, food. When I studied abroad in France, my eyes were completely open to culinary awesomeness of that new country. In our foodie culture, the experience of food is so important, particularly to your students. Discovering food, drink, and the history surrounding this is truly an experience unto itself. With that being said, we encourage you to speak with your student about budgets and expectations when it comes to eating out. One other thing to note is that eating habits tend to travel internationally. If your student likes to cook at home, they'll want to cook abroad. If they eat out at home, they'll likely want to eat out abroad. Either is great, and all of our locations have resources that can support them. There will be great markets and supermarkets in the neighborhoods your students are living in, as well as locations and kitchens in their housing to be able to create their own food. Or else there will be great opportunities for restaurants and international cuisine for them to experience.
All right, thank you, Liz and Emily, for all of that exciting information. We hope that you guys found this webinar helpful and informative as you prepare for your students' departure and as you help them also prepare. Before we sign off today, just a few takeaways. Make sure that you use the resources that are available to you to help both you and your student prepare. We do advise you to develop a communication plan for while they're abroad. As Liz and Emily both mentioned, communication while students are on site can be very different from what everybody is used to here in the U.S. So it's important to agree upon what that communication plan looks like for while they're at their program. Definitely talk about what to do in case of an emergency. Discuss and agree to a budget like Emily was just talking about, especially when it comes to food and additional travel. It's important to know what your students' expectations are and for them to know what your budget restrictions may or may not be for them while they're abroad. Review with your students their on-site contacts. Make sure that you know who they are and that they know who they are as well. And then, of course, enjoy the experience. If at all possible, visit your student while abroad. It's a lot of fun, and as we mentioned earlier, a lot of us here at CEA have studied abroad or had international experiences, and we're so passionate about seeing the world, and we definitely encourage as many people who can to do so and take advantage of the opportunities, especially while their students are already abroad. So with that being said, that does wrap up our webinar for today. As we mentioned earlier, this is a re-recording due to some technical difficulties we had, excuse me, with the original recording. And we will send out this link for everybody to view and keep as a reference on the blog, on our Facebook support groups, the email, and we'll also be compiling all the questions that were asked during the original chat and providing answers to those questions and sending those out both via Facebook and the email as well. So if you have any questions, please reach out to your student site specialist. You can also reach out to Liz Cather. You can email CEA, and we hope that you guys have a great afternoon and evening, and look forward to connecting with you in the coming weeks as we prepare for departure. Thanks again, everyone.